Peace YouTube, this is Florboon coming to you today. Coming to you today with another topic of discussion. Hey family, we're gonna try this Wi-Fi. I'm on the beach, so hold on. I promise it is non-alcoholic, and that may be peace of the east, the west, the north, and the south. I told you I was gonna make a video based on. Check it out. They're already saying Madonna like a prayer. Somebody's saying Madonna, they're throwing out flashbacks. All right, family, so we're going to get into the topic discussion that I never made it to yesterday. Okay, so let's discussion. Okay, on the side, giving her input on what we're noticing. And for those who are unaware what I'm talking about, I personally think based on the last 4 weeks, I say 4 weeks now, about a month, I've noticed, I must have put them away, change in frequency. Now, normally you know that we're living in a matrix that goes in a cylindrical pattern. Basically, it's going in like a loop, okay? So there isn't anything new under the sun, which many of your teachers say very often. You hear people reference that statement all the time, but it's absolutely true because we're looping. We're perpetually looping in a 360 degree, not an angle, but a circular pattern, which allows us to return to points of references. And usually when we return to those points of references, we usually enter into genres or, frequencies of genres that if you live long enough, that you'll definitely revisit. But over the last 4 weeks, I hope you can hear me over the water. Hold on. Okay. Hold on, family. So, over the last 4 weeks, I think 4 weeks, right, Paulina? I think 4 weeks, roughly 4 weeks, I've noticed that the 80s theme has been perpetually keep resurfacing. Whether it's the music of the 80s, whether it's some of the mindset, some of the technology from the 80s. We were looking at the Rubik's Cube, right? We went into town and we're seeing, but remember, I'm a little bit of a throwback because I am in Brazil. It is a little bit of a retrograde over here, right? Like a geographical retrograde all the time. So basically, it's like a throwback. I'm coexisting in a throwback here. I noticed something that was going on. Every time I was turning and going in, that I was going to, there isn't any Starbucks here. Big up to Starbucks that hopefully I will revisit. When I go, Paulina gave me this look, that I'll be revisiting once I get back to the States. So I noticed that first time I went into Starbucks, I noticed that there was the music playing from the 80s, and I'm cool with it because I remember the songs from the late 80s. And it's a refresher for me. It's like a throwback. It's very what do you call it? Like nostalgic. But I noticed it once in Starbucks theme. You'll see in Starbucks in different arenas. You'll always see the same pattern of music. It's just they have specific types of songs to play. So I didn't think anything of it. But then I associated with Starbucks, not even relatively the same. I was always hearing Madonna, I was hearing U2, or I was hearing Aha, or I was hearing Boy George. And I noticed that, why am I perpetually hearing the same music, I'm in a totally different arena? And you could say, yeah, that's just music, Florboon. That doesn't mean that we're returned to the 80s. But what if I tell you that every single time that I would end up going somewhere where different people, different things, and I would end up going places, and there would always be about things in the 80s. There would always be things that were relatively connected to the 80s, whether it was a star, Madonna being interviewed again, whether it was Cyndi Lauper being brought up, whether it was movies that are, like Square Pegs or Prince of Bel-Air. No, Prince of Bel-Air I think was more the 90s. There were notably movies. There were notably movies played. Yeah, there were relatively movies that were showing up that were like throwbacks. I'm I have beach on the brain. Normally I say baby on the brain, but I got beach on the brain. So I can't remember the exact movies. I've written everything down. You know, I am a fanatic at taking notes. So what is this pattern of a genre? I don't know if I'm on or not, so I'm sorry. If it's going in and out, the Wi-Fi is a lot better than where I'm staying. So hopefully it'll hold. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm not even because I am still in northern Brazil. The Wi-Fi here, I mean, remember, I'm actually in nature. Unlike Nature Not, who is actually locked up. Big up to the imprisonment of Nature Not, who's now imprisoned in a Nicaragua jail somewhere. Hopefully he's there to stay and be extradited to be charged with crimes against humanity and pooping on trees. That's a violation of the earth realm. Anyway, so I'm going to make this quick because I know that the Wi-Fi may not hold, but I wanted to say that I noticed a theme of the 80s showing up everywhere. Once I noticed that, everything was starting to follow suit. Okay, family, I don't even know if you can see me. I'm going to make this, like I said, I'm going to keep trying to make it quick. It's going to keep going in and out. So I noticed the 80s theme. Now because of that, the air, Paulina, you know, I call her Guccina. She has nicknames, every nickname possible, because that's what I do. She noted that during the 80s, the late 80s, there was a finance. She said from that morning, she could probably give you a better take on it. I don't know where she is right now. She's somewhere else. She noted that everybody's accounts were frozen. When the accounts were frozen, the money was now shifted into another currency. It was a financial reset. A lot of people lost a lot of money because the government taking over your financial affairs and your bank accounts. They can literally say, oh, you thought you had 40,000, but you only have 5. So a lot of money that time. As when the government took over and did a reset, they changed the currency, and a lot of people lost money based on the fact that there was a undertone of diabolicalness. That's not really a word. Diabolicalness, where they kind of took control of people's financial currency, and they changed it and shape shifted it. Okay, so because of that, there was a reset. But also on IG, we noted that someone stated that in the movie Back to the Future, when we have McFly going back in time and going forward, he noticed that I think it was the Chicago Cubs had won. Apparently, one of the Sun Stars on the feed in IG. Please, I can't remember verbatim, but he stated that that was the same thing that just happened recently again. So remember, movies emulate and imitate reality. They're supposed to tell us what they do, even if they put it in artificial tenses or artificial, you know, in movies, you know, in cinemas, because they'll make it seem like it's, you know, they'll make it seem like it's drama or it's science fiction or it's, you know, it isn't real. But in layman's terms, it's everything that is going on right now. They will put it in movies and cinemas to basically say, oh, we told them. They have free will to agree or accept it or not. That's how they get away with it on a very subway. They get away with it in a very undertone kind of way, getting away with telling you the truth, but putting it in cinemas that we think are artificial and it's really the truth. So if you get a chance to watch Back to the Future, you're going to see a lot of the same events. One of the things you'll notice that Back to the Future, now listen to the name Back to the Future. If he's going back in time, you know, it's like that idiom. He's going back in time, but he's going back to the future because he traveled back in time, but he has to get back to the future, right? A great movie, wonderful 80s movie. But again, there were a lot of movies that came about during this time. If you watch the movie, you also notice that during it was the first time that McFly went back and he came back to the future. The timeline that he came back to had been altered based on him changing something in the past. And one of the things you'll note that is very similar to what we're coexisting in is Donald Trump is president, who is known to be a casino owner and builder. And in this particular time, one of the bullies, who was really egregious, who was one of the people that was torturing McFly when he was living in his present day timeline. He had gone back into the future, where he had altered the timeline when he traveled back in the past with his own parents, and he found his mother was married to a... What happened? Okay. It's okay. He figured out, he visited a future timeline that was altered based on him going back in the past, where his mother was married to this egregious bully that his father was supposed to marry his mother, and he was married to Donald Trump. I say Donald Trump because this character is very likened to Donald Trump. They were saying, you know, in the future, when he comes back from the future, when he alters the timeline, he also notices when this casino, you know, this man who's very similar to Donald Trump has a casino, and all of the places around the casino, like, if you know, most people know, like, around casinos is most slums, right? Most slums, as soon as they built the casino, it's like hoods everywhere, right? So he goes in the future and he sees that everywhere is a hood that has a casino. And he knows that he's altered the past. So now he has to go back to the past. It's a wonderful, like, if you've never gotten a chance to see it, a lot of our millennials, I don't know if your parents were like big sci-fi people, it's something that you definitely should go see. So why I bring this up is that I personally think, this is my own theory, okay? Based on, hold on, I got my cochinas. I got my little ones with me. If I can see your comments. I noticed that during this time, I was seeing a lot of the residue of the 80s around. Not so much that we're coexisting in the 80s, but almost like a bleed over from the 80s. Almost like we've been transported, this entire planet, because I'm in Brazil and I'm getting tons of 80s here, 80s music. I noticed that there was also that version here, and one of our other sea stars who's located in Southeast Asia said it was the same there. So it made me think that planetarily they transported us without our knowledge, and actually without our consent, at least our overt consent, to the 80s, 33 to 35 years ago. Why? I haven't really gotten that theory. How are they able to do that? Now, if you really know that they have time technology that has superseded anything that you really could even acknowledge. And if you look at the Philadelphia experiment, when you see that a whole town can be transported into another time frame, you know that this can happen. Time technology does happen. What most would only acknowledge on smaller levels. But what if I said that they have the technology that supersedes anything that we could even conceptualize, and that they could transport an entire planet into another realm, or transport us back in the past without our knowing? Because really, we're taking ourselves and putting ourselves in that 80s and the whole genre of it, and then hold on, and then not only that, we're bringing ourselves, basically you're transporting a whole planet. You're just getting the frequency of the 80s. So what we're getting is the bleed over from the 80s. So the whole planet, we're bringing our own cell phones, we're bringing ourselves, we're bringing everything that we have here, almost like you're transporting all of us with our things, our suitcases, everything we come with, but we're in that past, and there's bleed over from the 80s via the music, the frequency, the people. Have you noticed that all the 80s artists are now doing interviews? Almost like they're getting a little bit of that feeling, that little bit of, or maybe they have the heads up. We don't even know. You know, a lot of these people have taken a blood oath. We don't know how much they know either. So they may be taking advantage of the fact that we've traveled back into the 80s and starting to feel themselves. You know what I'm saying? Salt and Pepper was resurfacing. We had we had New Edition. We had Boy George. Who else did we have in the 80s? Lionel Richie. Who else?
Mary J from the 80s.
She's from the 90s, more in the 90s. We were Aha, U2, Madonna, Cyndi Lauper.
Yep.
Who else was online? I wish I could see your comments, because I know a lot of you are on there. I see names on here. I can't see it fully.
I'm gonna go online so I see what people are saying.
Okay. You can see, Guccina can actually read your comments, because I can't read the comments because the sun is actually, and it's kind of bleeping out your view. So Guccino, tell me some of the comments. Who else was there? We have Heart. A lot of the, remember, rock and roll was on. That's when pop was at its full. Soul music, like R&B, kind of kicked off in a different way. Because remember, the 70s, it was a whole different vibration. Once we got to the 80s, it was more like pop, right? So remember, I want you guys to start to notice, because at first I thought it was just us. You know, because sometimes people say, oh, Flurburn, you're bringing it too far. You know, you're a little paranoid. You're always bringing things into... I'm rational, though. So I always bring it to you all and say, are you noticing any residue from the 80s? Are you noticing any sort of bleed over that is reminiscent to a time frame that isn't from what we should be engaging in? This is 2019. There isn't any reason that I should be walking around seeing Rubik's Cubes, or I should actually be seeing movies popping up in the theater that are from the 80s. Even on Netflix, if you see, there's a lot of throwbacks to the 80s. You have the award show where everyone, Annie Lennox, remember the Cosby Show is from the 80s. Is Cosby Show from the 80s?
Yeah.
The Cosby Show is from the 80s. All of these things are starting to surface. Why do you think? And why would it be so far-fetched with the diabolical ones we call programmers of the Matrix, the Archons, to possibly take an entire planet and shift it back in time? Now, we are not sure. Now, one thing I can't give you the answer to, what would be the motivation of doing that? What would be the motivation? Kachina, can you tell us why they were... Okay, oh wow. Okay, Guccina's gonna tell...
No, wait.
Okay, she's gonna give me the time frame about the 80s, because I think that's really important, because when she mentioned that, we wouldn't know that in the States. It was what? 87. Okay. 1987 was a month in Brazil. Right? Okay.
Not 100% sure.
Okay, she's tentative.
But it was around this time.
Not, she's giving a round, roughly, a rough estimate. I don't want you guys on, yes. Video, giving you my theory. Don't have a full theory, and this is why I say I come to you two. IG basically kind of solidified that I wasn't going cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, that I actually was perceiving things as they truly were showing up. That my questions about why there's a bleed over from the 80s is actually showing up with not just myself, but a lot of the populace, especially in our famille. Are you noticing that people are wearing sneakers and apparel from the 80s? Are you noticing some of the themes and some of the old apparel, old clothing lines are coming back? I'm not saying Jordache jeans. I'm not saying Jordache jeans. What else was in there? What was the other jeans? It was Jordache jeans, and then what was that? What else? Oh, the bell bottoms was from the 70s, though. You was in the 80s?
I remember myself with a gold
What was
jacket and a white bell bottom.
Oh, okay, and then somebody else was talking about disco music, yeah, but mostly pop.
Was in the 80s.
That's right, the beginning of the 80s with John Travolta. But remember, they have shoulder pads. This lady was bringing up shoulder pads at the Posada I'm staying in. And I was like, why is she bringing up shoulder pads? Who's wearing shoulder?
Remember I just told you about the interview with the,
Yeah,
the
so-
Australian girl?
Okay, yes.
She was wearing shoulder.
Paulina was mentioning that a young lady that was a Australian pop star. She's a hip hop star. She was talking about the shoulder pads she was wearing. Nobody's worn shoulder pads since the 80s.
RuPaul interview with
Oh, a RuPaul interview of all things. And you don't ever know, RuPaul's is a throwback. Isn't RuPaul's from the 80s? RuPaul's is from the 80s. So, family, I just put it out to you as a theory. I haven't really verified that this is the case, but based on the residue and the bleed over into the 80s, I personally think they transported us and the planet back to the entire planet. I don't think it's just one place. I think the entire planet. Why they would want to shift us back 30 to 35 years, I haven't an idea. Maybe there's a reason why they're doing it. It could be a portal that's open that they're deciding to put us in a holding station. Now, mind you, there's a couple movies now on Netflix now. If you want to watch a movie, one of the IG family had told me to watch this movie on Netflix called Dark. I thought its name was Night, but it's actually Dark. It goes into the whole concept of some sort of portal that next to what is that? Like a power plant, not a power plant, like a one of those plants that, like Chernobyl. What was Chernobyl? No, Chernobyl's plant. That next to this plant, at certain times during one time every 33 years. Listen to this. Every 33 years, next to this power plant, nuclear plant. I'm sorry, nuclear plant. That this portal would open and it would transport people back to the 80s. If you watch this movie, it will bug you out because you say to yourself, why am I, because I didn't know about this movie previous to me noticing that everything, tell you what they're doing, even if they didn't take our heat, they didn't heed our warnings. We told because we're not real, just are complacent based on the fact that it's a made up movie or made up theme. We're not thinking that it's real, that they're telling us the truth. And even now, I'm noticing that copies of people are starting to show up. That's a whole nother aspect of what I'm noticing as well. Copies of people. Big up to a friend of mine. I won't mention his name, but I noticed that even when I came here to the northern part of Brazil, and I want to be more specific, but I'll be more specific when I leave. But I noticed even in the north part of Brazil that there was a copy of a person that I knew, kind of like the movie Us, that I know via online, and I know him back northeast. And there's a copy of him, but he is absolutely the total opposite. It's almost the exact copy of the person that I interact with on the other side. And of course I sent pictures. I like to, like I said, the proof is always in the pudding. I always like to get verification with anything I do, but I noticed that was something that showed up here while in Brazil. Now that was only one person, but I always say everything's relative. What if they're transporting us through time, trying to rewind us, maybe because they don't, I'm sorry, family. I know this frustration will come on and off, and I promise when I get back to the States, okay, I'm back on. I'm sorry that it's going in and out. I can't even control that. But I wanted to know that if any of you are noticing, I know I come to the family because I know many notice things 10 times over, and many of you are so clever that you're able to from a totally different vantage point. Are you starting to notice, friends listening to old records, right? Are you starting to realize that every time you go in a grocery store, a convenience store, 80s, for video game heads, are you starting to see a throwback of games like Hubert, Centipede, Pac-Man? What else was back then? 0 Point. Let's take that in consideration, because I want to bring in all plausibilities and possibilities. Could this be our return to 0 Point? Remember, time isn't linear as we know it. It overlaps top of one another. So past to 0 Point, a degree circle, going back into the genres, basically going back to reference point to point in the middle. Maybe that's what's happening, that we're noticing that we're going back to the 80s, but maybe it's not just the 80s. Maybe it's going to go to the 70s in another month. Maybe it's going to go to the 60s. Are we basically returning back to 0 Point, and we're going to all go, this entire planet is traveling through time, hitting points of reference that we're noticing with the bleed over. We're all gathered together in our own little bubble, but the residue is still present. So could that be a plausibility? I would love to know your opinion. I wish I could see your comments online. I'm so sorry. I have to apologize every time I come to you, because I love to interact with you, and it's so difficult because, again, I'm out in the elements. I'm out and about, and here in Brazil, I'm very active. I'm always out. We're at the beaches. We're out to dinner. This is the most beautiful place to engage because you live. I have to say, big up to the Brazilians. And this is only northern Brazil. I haven't done southern Brazil yet, but Viva Brazil. They know how to live. Like, they enjoy all day. Even the stores and everything are set up so that there's no stores open during beach time. People just spend the entire day on the beach, and nothing opens until after beach time when it's about to be sunset, and then stores open for shopping. Even they go to church at nighttime. This is literally a leisurely environment. I don't know about the whole country, but where I am, it is a bit of a, it is a bit of a more, I'm more this is their winter time. So I'm in the north, which is considered to be their more tropical place. Like how we in the States, most people go south in the winter. Here they go north in the winter because I'm in the inversion of you. So here in the winter in the north, it's like, you know, what they would consider to be Florida or, you know, Miami, you know, parts of Miami, or, you know, South Carolina, Atlanta, I mean, Georgia. That's what it's considered to be here. So a lot of people come here during their winter months as a summer vacation, what we consider to be like going more into a warmer arena. So just give me an idea. I can't really read your comments. I would love to know your opinion. I really respect it. And I really want to get a better consensus. Like I said, the IG family was so on point. Like if I wish I saved the feed, I think I saved some of the feed, but if you hear some of the shares with the IG family, like everybody was, people had reference points from Back to the Future, a couple other movies that were referencing time travel. And if you check out this movie Night on, Dark, it's called Dark on, what is it? Netflix. On Netflix, you will see that this is, they're telling us, but it returns to 0 point. I just thought about that. We could just be crime. And I was saying, no, be the end point. We might just be going point. So we might be going to all the time references. So maybe 80s now, maybe 70s in 2 weeks, or maybe 60s, you know what I mean? So maybe this is not it. I'm just singing it because I recognize the 80s. So maybe we're going in inverse because remember we're going back to 0 point, and yeah. So maybe turns is a 360-degree circular motion. You know, like a roller coaster goes forward and then it all of a sudden it goes backwards. This really messed with my head.
I told you so. You have your name.
Wow. It's kind of thinking right now. Question because I can't see anything. I think it's a decent video.
Last time you were sitting there. That's much better.
Oh, is it better?
Sitting on the couch.
Well, I'm gonna let it because I want to chill out.